Hello and welcome to the first Hot Pixel production tutorial video on understanding and learning about layer masks, how to create and manipulate them, and then moving on to understanding the power of adjustment layers, also used in conjunction with masks to be able to make precise and targeted adjustments of an image in a non-destructive way, that is, not on a pixel level of the original image. My name is Gerald Berliner, and in these tutorials I will share with you my approach to masking, culminating in a look at my complete workflow process that will allow you to develop the necessary skills to be able to take your images that may start out looking like this to end up looking more like this. I have thought long and hard about how to pitch these tutorials and have decided that I will start off assuming you know very little to absolutely nothing about layer masks, adjustment layers, and many other aspects of post-processing in Photoshop. So with that, let me just say, if you are at an intermediate to advanced level, then these first few tutorials will not be for you. So I'd stop watching now and go out and take some more pictures instead. But if you do want to come with me on this journey, we will be taking things slowly and methodically all the way. So let's dive in and have some fun while we unfold some of the mysteries of layer masks and beyond. Hello and welcome back, and let's begin to start delving into what layer masks are all about. Well, basically the basic principle of a mask, as you may start to begin to surmise, is the ability to be able to mask and hide certain portions or elements of an image on the canvas on a particular layer. Now, I'm actually going to close down this layer palette on the supposition that if you go into Photoshop and you're opening Photoshop for the first time, you may not even be able to find or see the layer palette visible. So this is how you go and locate the layer palette. You just come up under Window and pull the drop down menu down, and you just select Layers, and up will pop your layer menu. As you can see here, we have one layer already instantiated, but in order to do this I'm going to need to have an additional layer. So in order to do that, I'm just going to click onto this other document that I have open here, and I'm going to select this entire canvas by going up under the drop down menu to select and down to select all. Now, I'm a big proponent and fan and always try and use wherever possible the keyboard shortcuts for these kind of actions or commands. So let me just release that, and on my keyboard just type Command A on the Mac, and I think that will be Control A on the PC. And what you can see here very, very faintly is a dotted black and white animated, very slowly animated bounding box here. Now this is what's actually euphemistically called in the Photoshop community as the marching ants. As you can see, because it's these little black and white dotted lines are just chugging their little way slowly along there. But this is to indicate that this entire area now is selected. And with this area selected, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to now copy and paste this into that other document. I am actually going to do it by the keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to go Command C to copy. I'm going to hop back onto or into this other document, and I'm just going to do Command V, and bang, it brings it in and it drops it right down on top of the other layer. And this is basically what layers do. They stack one on top of the other, going vertically. Now, as you can see, this layer that we just pasted in is completely opaque. It's completely blocking out the layer underneath it. But what you can do, if you could look to the left here, you'll see these two small eye icons. And that's for you to be able to toggle on and off, or switch or turn off each individual layer. So by toggling that off, you then hides it and reveals the layer below it. And I'll just switch that back on and switch that back on. Do it quickly enough. Any other disco? No, seriously. Another way you can actually reduce the presence of this, or the visibility of this layer, would be to actually come up over here under its opacity, and if you click on that down arrow and just click and start dragging the cursor over to the left, you begin to reduce its opacity, or what is also known as or referred to possibly as alpha, its alpha value. And as you can see, you can have it at full strength, or you can incrementally reduce it to 0 so it's not visible at all and reveals the layer below it. Well, that's all very well and good, but as you can see, that's happening on, I suppose, what you could say like a global level, in as much it's affecting the layer in totality. All of that layer is appearing and disappearing. Now what we can do by adding a layer mask is to do kind of the same thing, but isolate certain areas or aspects of this top layer so only parts of it get concealed, and we could then thus start to reveal just parts of the layer underneath it. So this is basically what we're going to do. We're going to attach a layer mask to this topmost layer, and we're going to do that by coming down to these icons down at the bottom, and we're going to click on this rectangular icon with the small little hole through it. That's the add layer mask icon, and we're just going to click on that, and as you can see, it's attached a transparent layer mask to this particular layer. Now this is basically getting to the entire crux and fundamentals of what masking is all about. It's basically controlled by two fundamental colors, white, as you can see here. Now imagine white as being a clear sheet of transparent glass, which is allowing this layer to show right through it. If we now want to hide this particular layer, we will need to do what's known as inverting this layer mask. That is basically changing it from white to black. Now there's two ways to do it. There's a long way, which is to go up and use the drop down menu under image, come down to adjustments, then come all the way down to invert, and as you can see, the key command for invert is just a simple Command I, and that's what I'm going to do. And when I press Command I, you're going to see what's going to happen. That layer mask is going to invert to solid black, and when it does invert to solid black, it completely hides the layer that it's attached to, thus revealing the layer below. And basically, if you learn just one thing from this particular video, it's this mantra, and it's as follows. Now I'm going to just start continually pressing my Command I key to invert this layer, and it's basically this: white reveals, black conceals. White reveals, black conceals. That is the basic fundamental premise of what masking is all about. Is about being able to hide and reveal a particular layer or the layer below it through simply just going from black to white, and also being able to constrain how much of that visibility is present by values between white and black, i.e. different shades of grey. Not 50 shades of grey, just shades of grey. And I will demonstrate that as I begin to show you how we go about revealing this lower layer through this top layer through manipulating this mask. Now, as I think we're starting to get our head around, white reveals, black conceals. So just imagine now that our beautiful, pristine, clean, transparent white piece of glass now has a complete thick, opaque black layer of soot on it. What we need to do in order to reveal this layer that it's attached to is to start wiping away this black soot. And this is how we're going to go about it. We're going to use one tool, and there's a few tools we can do or we can use to do this, but the most prevalent one is going to be the brush tool. So let's select our brush tool by either clicking on it over here or pressing the key command B, and our cursor has now changed into a brush, and it looks like it's quite a small brush here. So what we're going to do is we can come up underneath the brush dialog box up here and increase its size by increasing its radius like that. Now, as opposed to its hardness, we'll talk a little bit about that maybe a little bit later on, but right now at 0, it's set to 0. That is the softest brush available in terms of it'll give you a very, very smooth transition when you start painting onto the canvas or this layer mask. Now there's another way that you can change the size of your brush, and that is to look to the right of the P key, to be careful how I say that, on your keyboard, and you will see a left and square bracket, and if you just start tapping on the left square bracket, you will begin to reduce the size of the brush. Consequently, if you start pressing on the right, you will increase the size of the brush. So I'm just going to tap a couple of times on the left key, bring that down a little bit. Now Given that we're starting to understand that white reveals, this is what we are now going to do in order to bring back or reveal this topmost layer. First of all, we need to click on the layer mask itself, and when you click between these two particular rectangles, you will see that there's brackets appear, square brackets appear around all four corners, indicating that this is the selected item. So like I say, we need to click and make our layer mask live. We need to come over to our foreground and background color silo, and we need to swap here the foreground from black to white. Now you can do that by toggling on this small bracketed arrow here, by swapping there, or you can just simply tap the X key on your keyboard and that will toggle between the two, swap it over. So like I said, we need to fill our brush with white, and in this case we're going to set its opacity or strength to 100% so it's full on. We're going to come over to our, make sure our black layer mask is highlighted, and we're now going to start painting on the canvas thus. And as you can see, as we paint white onto this black layer mask, we're painting white on, thus white revealing. The white is going to reveal the layer that this is now attached to. And in essence, that is again the basic premise of how we can use layer masks to reveal targeted elements on the canvas or a particular layer, to reveal or hide the layer above and or below. Now, consequently, if I didn't like what I'd done here, I could just simply type X on my keyboard to fill the brush with black and start painting back over onto this mask. And as you can see, because I'm painting black, white so when he's white reveals, black conceals, and this is exactly what we're doing now. We're painting black onto that layer mask, thus hiding again that yellow layer or that yellow canvas that it's attached to. So we're pretty much just going to scrub that in, and we're back to square one. So there you have it. Again, white reveals, black conceals. Now, thus far what I've shown you is using a brush that has an opacity of 100%. Now the opacity value is showing up here, and you can see it's at 100%. Now if I just type or hit the 1 numeral key on my keyboard, it will then make its opacity to 10%. The numeric keys on the keyboard will actually change in increments of 10 the value of that opacity. So as I say, 1 will be 10%, 2 will be 20%, 3 will be 30%, 4 will be 40%, all the way up through back up to 0, which takes it up to 100% opacity. Now I'm just going to hit 5 actually and make this brush have a 50% opacity, and I'm going to change it back by hitting the X key to be loaded with an opacity of 50% of white, and I'm going to now paint that across this layer mask. And as you can see now, instead of it being solid yellow appearing, it's a kind of an orange color, because what we're doing, instead of painting pure white across this layer mask, we're actually just painting a percentage of white of its percentage of the alpha value, in this case 50%. So in essence it's kind of technically just showing 50% of this layer that it's attached to. Now if I keep going over, it will start gradually revealing more to the point where we will be back at solid white. Now if we hover over this layer mask here and hold down the Option or Alt key and click on it, it will actually show us in all its full glory this mask. And like I say, doing this we are painting over with 50%. I'm going to make it even more subtle and drop down to 30% by hitting the 3 key on my keyboard, and that's even more subtle. Now let's go all the way down to 10%. Now that's pretty subtle. Now if we click on our active layer here, yeah, I mean, you can kind of see it there. It's very faint here. It's almost actually invisible there. But as I say, when we get into the real world situation, we're actually using this on an actual image, you'll begin to see how valuable having that range of opacity will be in being able to reveal or hide very, very subtly certain adjustments that we may have made to a certain image. So what I'm now going to do is I'm just going to right click or control click now on this layer mask in order to well, actually you can do two things. It's quite useful. You can actually disable this layer mask, which kind of basically turns it off, so it conceals it, but it obviously doesn't delete it. You can then control or right click on it again and re-enable it, so it's now active. Or you can actually just delete it completely. Now, when we started out here, we added a transparent layer mask simply just by clicking on the add layer mask icon down here. Now, if we wanted to immediately conceal this layer by adding a black mask, all you would need to do is to come down to this icon, and before clicking, just hold down the Option, I think, or Alt key on a PC and click, and immediately it will add a opaque black layer mask onto this layer. And you can begin immediately by again, loading your brush with white. Let's hit 0 on the keyboard to take it back to 100%, so we can start making sure obviously that we clicked on the layer mask to target that, and as I say, we can then just have lots of fun. Okay, now I'm just going to hit Command or Control Z to undo that action, because I'm going to show you how we can use another tool to be able to work on this mask to help to start to reveal what's going on underneath, and that's going to be the gradient tool. Now the gradient tool is down over here. I've actually got the bucket paint tool selected here, but if you just click down on this, you should get a flyout menu that shows the other tools contained on here, and as I say, we want to select the gradient tool. Now with the gradient tool, you just get a little crosshair here. But what we need to look at is making sure that our foreground, yes, thank you very much, is set to white. We go up to the gradient editor here and just make sure that we have selected as our gradient white, going from white to transparent, not white to solid black. It kind of is a bit confusing because we've kind of been saying that white reveals, black conceals, so what's going on now? We're introducing opacity, but you'll see very quickly what's going to happen when we select foreground white to a transparent background. So we have that now. So what I'm going to do is just simply, I'm actually going to hold down the shift key when I click and drag down, just to constrain this so it's perfectly straight and perpendicular. I'm just going to start dragging down to around about here, and then I'm going to release. And you can see what's happened. You see what's happened is that we have introduced solid white at the top here, and it's ramped off to transparent. And in doing so has obviously allowed this black mask to show through in the transparency and, as I say, reveal this bottommost layer with white reveals, black conceals, but what is white has revealed this uppermost layer. So that's another cool way that you can actually do the reveal conceal by using the gradient tool. So let's just come down to the bottom here, do the same thing. I'm going to click, hold down the shift key, drag this up, and again, you can see the goodbye starting to go here. It's very subtle, very nice. And again, when we get into the real life situation where I'm working on an image, you again will see how this can be very, very useful. So let me just go up to this layer here and right click, or control click on it, and go down to delete it. So we're back to square one. And in essence, what we've now done is, as I say, touch on the basic fundamental premises of what masking is all about, is the ability through the addition of a layer mask to be able to reveal and conceal the layer that it's attached to in order, as I say, to conceal it and thus reveal the layer beneath. So I hope that's not been like Chinese math to you. If it's still a little bit, still not quite sure, obviously go back and retrace the steps through this video. But I'm going to end it here now. And in the next video, what we're now going to do is look at a real-world situation with an actual image, apply the principles of layer masking, but in the context and in conjunction with adjustment layers. And I'll explain what those are all about in the next upcoming video. So thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next go round.